To film wildlife, you need to be calculated, cunning. You need to study your targets, know their habitats, and know their homes. But most of all, you need to not go on a film trip during a tropical depression. All right, guys, well, today's our last day in North Florida, and it is torrential downpour. Awful weather, simply awful. It's cold, it's rainy, and I wanted to look for some of our more deadly snakes out here today, but none of them are gonna be out, not in this weather at least. So I figured we'd check around some trees, maybe we'll get some scorpions, some centipedes, and some things like that. But I'm definitely thinking it's gonna be too cold for reptiles. Might be some amphibians out tomorrow, but this is just cold, so we're gonna try it. Animals can be particular, which means even the slightest weather change can mean the difference between finding everything and finding absolutely nothing. This is like the one way I would expect to see what we're looking for today. I have like a 10 pillars. Makes a perfect tunnel for all kinds of animals. Mammals, snakes, pretty much everything. And in this kind of weather, that's what everything is gonna be. Cold, wet weather, not good for what I was hoping on this trip. But I'm not just gonna like stop looking, you know? I mean, I'm here. I figured I could still find a cool bug or two in some dead trees, maybe a cool amphibian as well. But I ended up finding an absolute gem. Well guys, I can't believe this. Have a look at that. That is not what I was expecting to see in these kind of temperatures. Right behind this little piece of bark, a stunning, out of shed, unlike the last one, scarlet king snake. I'm baffled. This is like the worst weather possible to be out here and see one of these. That's insane. Red, got a nice orange band around the top of the head. This would be considered an adult, not a large adult, but this would be an adult. Now in Florida, this species is a bit more common. This is a snake that you can see, but that's only due to them having lots and lots of habitat. There's not actually a sick amount of scarlet kings within a given area. So for instance, if you were to take this little patch of area right here and take this one snake and say, well, since you found a one snake in bad weather, it probably means there's a lot of them here, right? There might be, I would say, between a dozen to 2 dozen scarlet kings, I would estimate in my own head at least, living in this area, including parents and babies. And that's actually one of my arguments for why this snake should be endangered throughout much of its range. Maybe not here in Florida, but on the fringe parts of its range, this snake is incredibly rare and actually being extirpated from much of its original habitat. That can also be due to collecting, but it's mostly due to habitat destruction and lack of this good longleaf habitat. Notice they use this to thermoregulate. This is something that has to be managed. We burn this constantly, and what that does is it turns these dead pine trees into perfect habitat for them to live behind. In the worst of weather, I mean, it's not torrential downpour right now, but it's raining on us enough to where we're gonna need to get the camera dried off when I get back. It's definitely not the best of weather. Now, longleaf habitat, if many of y'all don't know this is like the place to find lots of different plant and animal species, but a lot of them are incredibly rare, scarlet kings being one of them. There are many rare snakes out in this habitat, pine snakes, rattlesnakes, your scarlet kings, and of course whatever the scarlet king is mimicking, which in this area is going to be your coral snake. Now you might ask, would you be able to see a coral snake the same way we saw this snake? No, absolutely not. Despite this being a mimic, they're incredibly different. You're not going to be seeing them inhabiting a lot of the same places oftentimes. Scarlet kings have a bit of a bigger range than corals on average. Corals are much more fossorial than scarlet kings. That's why you're going to see these under pine bark, because they're going to come up and thermoregulate. Corals have no need to do that. They're going to stay underground until they get a weird little splurge to just be above ground. Now where you're most likely to see one of these snakes, let's say you live in Florida or Georgia, you might could see one on your porch out at night. These are actually a nocturnal species, and while they're mostly going to be hunting lizards and skinks under this bark, they do spend a lot of time moving at night. So you can see this one is going to look completely different from the ones we've seen in Mississippi. It's going to look completely different from the ones in Louisiana. Going to look completely different from the ones up in Virginia. That's as far up as they go, and they look completely different in every single given area. Some incredible habitat with some of the worst conditions possible with one of the best results. While it's not the snakes that we were looking for today and hoping to find, this is a much better way to end the day than finding nothing. Absolutely love it every time we see one of these guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to check out the time we found one in Louisiana. Probably one of my longest snake hunts ever. We will see you guys next time. All right, let me go ahead and put him back.